Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's meeting, the monthly business meeting of the Cornwall Central School District Board of Education, to order. We have a special treat this evening. We have some instrumentalists here to lead us in the national anthem. So I ask that everyone rise for the playing of the national anthem and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to follow. Thank you.
More time, maybe?
Yeah, that's well done, well done. Oh, thanks.
So thank you for having us tonight. The military has played a large role in the Cornwall community. Tonight, select members from the CCHS band would like to play a traditional bugle call that's regularly at West Point by the Hellcats. Thank Mr. Wiesner, Owen's father, for giving us this piece. He regularly plays it with the Hellcats at West Point, so thank you very much. Please enjoy our little bugle call. Thank you. That's Owen Wiesner on Garcia on trumpet, Alarcon on trumpet. We have Hayden Ellett on bass drum and Christian White on snare drum. Thank you.
Wow, fantastic job, fantastic job. What a great little ensemble from our jazz band. Thank you so much. All right, so with that, how do you top that? I don't think we can. Maybe we should just stop and go home. Any takers? No? Okay, well, we will press on and ask that we move forward with recognition of visitors. There'll be two opportunities for public comments tonight, at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward? If so, please grab a mic, be recognized, and limit your comments in this round to 3 minutes, please. Anyone? Very good. Okay. Well, then that takes us then to our spotlight presentation this evening. We have representatives from the Palumbo Group to discuss our capital project with us this evening. I'm going to turn it over to Terry for introductions and get the meeting started. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. So we have the Palumbo Group here to provide an update on our Phase 1 work, completion status, our budget thus far, and then taking a peek into Phase 1A, the bidding process, and kind of some next steps from there. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to the Palumbo Group.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the invitation. Again, I'm Scott Butler, one of the project managers for the Palumbo Group, and I'd like to introduce my colleague, Bill Devine. He's also a project manager for the Palumbo Group. I'll be talking about Phase 1, Phase 1A, and then any other questions that you guys have as we roll through. I think everybody has a copy of the agenda. Very similar copycat format, right? So that way we can compare from our last presentation in October. A little bit about Phase 1. We'll go building by building like we've done in the past. We'll give you an update on scope and where we are on each of those items. A couple of photos, current running budget, as well as an update on a couple questions from Phase 1, which was the Cornwall and the Hudson Elementary School bid. All right, so just a little bit of an update. I think this also was in the handout package. So we currently have a monthly rolling update schedule. We work on it for several months now. Updated periodically on our monthly reports, talks about the scope of work at each location and the kind of statuses, where we're going, where we're heading, projections, so questions as brickwork at the high school or the middle school, like when do we plan on doing that stuff. So we bring this up at our periodic meetings, our owner, architect, construction management meetings, and then this is our meetings. Starting over at Cornwall Elementary School, basically what is left to complete the completion of the casework in the classrooms would be punch list, and then, which is all the work that we are doing in the front of the building, bringing the transformer adjacent to the back of the property. I drew over the as we roll through the presentation, making sure the district maintains its sole operational purpose of being a school is maintained. We don't want to put anything like that in jeopardy. I can talk loud, but I don't know if you're going to grab it. So again, maintaining the operational integrity of the school is the theme as to why we've chosen to do certain things, why we've pushed certain things to certain holidays. We had a fantastic holiday break. We've got selective schedules for winter break and then spring break and so on and so forth. So, and that's a little bit of what that schedule breakdown allows you to have. Willow Avenue, which was no argument, there was the most of the work with additional of the building on the loading dock and the new ramp, structural integrations there. There was also some code compliant needs such as the handrails in the hallways. And again, we're breaking down each one of those items, where we are with completed, where we are with pushed. So for instance, the replacement of the stairwell, We're still going through the code compliance exercise. Actually, I think that just came back today, approved. So then we can work with the general contractor to have all that equipment manufactured, fabricated, and then coordinate with the school as to when is an appropriate time to go ahead and do that work, whether it be, nights, weekends, or the upcoming holiday breaks. The loading dock, I'm happy to tell you that for the most part, the loading dock is to a point where structural steel is up, the roof is up. We're doing a little bit of details with the architect to get us weather tight and weathered in. And then what would be left would be the replacement of the loading dock deck itself. And then we can finish complete with the interior lights and walls. The heater's been installed, but not operational, so we're doing what we can around the confines of the weather. And then again, making sure that we're putting the right work in front of us at the right time, utilizing the spring break holidays, working with the administration, communicating outages, windows, expectations, again, to make sure that the school stays primarily in operational integrity, and then we're working around the windows as the work sees fit. Interior and exterior doors are still waiting for material to come in, but for the most part, again, that's one of those one-for-ones. We want to make sure that we've got the door in hand, all parts, pieces, tools, equipment, manpower, and then scheduling that appropriately. So we're taking a door out, putting it back in, and a window that, makes sense. Weekend, holidays. And then the Willow Avenue second floor reception, which will be taking a bathroom out of service. When I say that, we just had a meeting a couple of weeks ago coordinating what that would look like, protection, night shift, second shift, things of that nature. We can go in a little bit more detail, but again, making sure that the school has what they need operationally, so that way when we go ahead and finish that little bit of work, we're flies on the wall and unaffecting of the operations. Over at the middle school, I think we're more complete than the rest of the areas. Again, we have interior and exterior doors scheduled for subject to the weather. We talk about brick replacement, waterproofing. We really need warm nights, right? So we're going to utilize spring break as we get older. There are obviously weekends in May, June, July. And again, those are on that baseline schedule that's handed out. A couple of photos of the work that we've completed in the past, I'd say, month. A lot of the doors, replacements in a lot of the bathrooms, frames are new. I'm sure everybody remembers that the casework for this building came in staggered. We were waiting for the remainder of that to show up. We finally had that scheduled over Christmas. So from there, they're again in that punch list mode, making sure that everything is acceptable to the school and the architect. And again, the remainder of all the bathroom finish, and we scheduled a break. That was partitions, any accessories that were still outstanding. So now at that point, we are again in that punch list criteria with all the new work permanently installed. And then a little bit about the Willow Avenue. We've got the structural steel up. We've got all the deck, the insulation, the roof. Every 3 days. And then all the ornamental metal, the handrails, the staircases. As important as the schedule, the Phase 1 budget, nothing has really changed so much. So as we got to the October update, this is almost identical slide. Financially speaking, we're at a status. We've identified all of the changes that were coming or that will come. We've identified that in our projection, and since that we've recorded that, we've been able to close out or close to close out 2 contracts of the 6 that we have, with the remainder just having additional work really at Willow, bathrooms and the loading dock to close them out. But again, we aren't projecting any additional hiccups, changes, or adjustments to the budget, so what we have recorded previously in October is still what we're holding as a final closure. And again, a lot of that would be either found work or changes in design that was agreed to during construction. Any questions on Phase 1? Schedule, GC, status?
Richard?
Thank you. So my question really revolves around the deadlines and timeline we had in the beginning, and then where they ended up So like the bathrooms, the cabinetry, we didn't meet those deadlines. So can you just give a brief rundown of why we didn't meet those deadlines?
So
And why the delays were?
So we could talk a little bit, item by item. So let's take the cabinetry, for example. At the end of the day, a fabrication error between the shop drawing, the field verifications, the communication with the mill that makes it, right, and then the verification prior to the installation, they weren't manufactured correctly. The ones that came large. On the positive side, we took receipt of those, right, and used them as temporary storage cabinets until the new ones showed up. So that is, they were not completed by the end of August. That was a 6 to 8 month fabrication time, so by the time they were ready, right, it was coming November, right, and then I think we felt that over Thanksgiving break, it was just a push, right, to get that done. So then we selectively chose that winter break or the holiday break would have been a better window to get that done. At the end of the day, the item showed up, I believe, on Wednesday morning, right? We worked Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get those units done, and now they're in the punch list mode.
Good. So based on what we went through in phase one, how can we ensure that future timelines and deadlines are met more often than phase one? Maybe that's a question for phase two.
Actually, what I wrote in the last website, the PowerPoint presentation actually had a list of things that, we were going to, either do differently, attack differently, take advantage of differently to ensure that phase two is a little bit more successful. We plan on going in a lot more depth on phase two, phase 1A, where we are in the next facilities meeting, which I think is in 3 weeks or so.
Okay, thank you.
Brendan?
Thanks, John. Thanks for the update so far. Just a couple of questions. I noticed on the Willow Ave, or didn't notice on the Willow Ave update, anything about the egress out of the auditorium that has previously been listed under phase one. Perhaps is it on there under a different name, or is it not on there, and if so, why?
I think, it is. It's not under the same name. We've kind of lumped that into like the vestibule egress area. So if you take a look at the drawings and you enter that building, you go up the main entrance where the security, the security agent is.
Sorry, I was looking at titles. It's at the end of it. Yeah, no, you're right. Just a quick read of it. I missed it. Okay.
And the reason why it's kind of lumped in that air is due to fire egress and code compliance. That can't be opened up into the hallway that currently exists without certain smoke doors and others. So it's called kind of one big operation. When we get going, when that bathroom gets renovated and that hallway, that corridor happens, we also have an egress into the principal's office. So all that will kind of be one operation over the course of several weeks.
Got it. Okay. Second question is just on the schedule for the open items, those that are either work in progress or pushed. I noticed that it seems to be describing when we'll do the work and not, in almost all cases, a target for when it will be completed. Is there a sense of, for instance, let's just take the Willow Avenue, the staircase hand railing. We're in final approval, fabrication, and weekend work. Do we have a sense of, is there a completion date in mind? And more importantly, what I'm worried about that one in particular is what is the process for both removing and replacing? There will never be a point, for instance, where we've removed and then we haven't completed the replacement by Sunday, and then Monday students come in and there are no handrails.
No, we will never put the school in that position.
Okay.
If and when we go out, whether it be a holiday or a series of Saturdays. I think right now our schedule shows a series of like 5 or 6 consecutive Saturdays where we go into a hallway or stairwell. Right, we do that amount of work, both down, up, repair, store. So come Monday morning, it doesn't even look like we existed, except for now we've got upgraded facilities.
Great. But to the original question, I went on a tangent for that. Is there a sense of the completion date? Again, this is, I think, some of the clarity that I think, and perhaps not being in on the inside. I'm looking more to the perspective of end date as opposed to the window of progress. And I know for planning purposes, you're trying to figure out when to get in there. But just as far as from my perspective of trying to keep track of delivery dates, I'm more interested in when will this be complete by? Do we have a sense? Are we? I don't want to have you commit to something that is still a variable.
Nope.
Right? But is there a clearer sense on when some of these things will be complete?
Yes, and I know this is readable, and you've got to blow up, and we can go into, details item by item, right? But that's what the goal is here, is the tool to itemize, like in particular, the lower section here is the Willow handrail, right? Where we identify each one of the stairwells and the projected weekend that would occur in. Obviously, the longer bar is fabrication. We need to, we were waiting on all of this to be finally approved, all the code compliance and the details to be worked out. Then we can fabricate, and then we go weekend by weekend to get that installed. So yes, in that particular instance, we've got the first weekend in February all the way through, it looks like the third weekend in March.
Got it. And this this helps because where I'm going with this is I want to be sure that our phase 1 doesn't bleed into phase 2, and then everything starts to just get pushed back. But it seems like the latest dates here are in early May, and that's even an outlier. There's something to be done in July, but that seems like, again, another outlier. So are you confident that as you scope the landscape as far as sourcing materials and employees, staff, that you're going to be able to hit those realistically by April?
Yeah, a lot of it has been gearing around the principle that the school stays operational, right? So we've been coordinating our work around facilities operations, right? That's got to be number one, first and foremost. We need to be a fly on the wall, and you guys can run your schools.
So to interpret, sorry, go ahead.
No, so for that being said, this is something that we've been running since September, right? With an update, our monthly report has to where are we, what slid and why, if there is a case for like that. There's a couple items that were put on hold for a while, right? So that all gets updated, no less than monthly, so we can status where we are, where we're heading, and any changes.
Got it. And so if I'm interpreting correctly, then you're looking at the breaks as times to do this work, like spring break for some of them. You're looking for times where you can get into the building unfettered. So am I correct to assume then that the teams are already lined up for, you have teams locked in for spring break, for instance? It's on the contractor's schedule and it's ready to go. So I just wanting to eliminate as many of the scheduling variabilities as possible. Would you say that's inaccurate?
Yes. This has been communicated with the contractor, signed off by the contractors, all been, with the exception of maybe a handful of doors we're still waiting on, but they are not operation dependent, right? Door comes off, door goes back in. Again, we're going to wait for those proper windows. Yeah.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brendan. Christine?
Thanks.
And then Beth.
So on the budget, phase 1 budget sheet, could you just clarify for me on the last piece of electrical work, you have total potential charges is 0, but it says future Lee Road scope. So is that a definite 0, or is that as of today, that's what you think?
So as of today, it's what we think. We are negotiating a potential credit coming back to the district's way, when logistically we started moving around some design considerations. That hasn't been finalized yet, but we're certainly not going to go up. If anything, we're going to come back down. We just don't know how much that is yet.
So that 0 should not change or create an impact for the district?
Correct.
Okay. Just as an observation, you described 5 steps of errors that occurred to have the incorrect cabinetry delivered. Mm-hmm. That's shocking to me. And I just want to be on the record because I think that so many steps to have the error go through, and it really, people could function with what you provided, granted, but it certainly was not an ideal way to start everybody's year feeling like it wasn't, done right. And I'll also add, I'm really surprised that you did not anticipate someone asking the question, what are you going to do to ensure we don't have these delays in the future? And you reference a prior presentation. I think the public and the school and the board deserves to know what are your plans to mitigate these kinds of issues in the future. And it surprises me you didn't come here prepared to answer that question.
Bass?
Thanks, John. I have two questions. Question one is, I'd like to understand, as project managers, what is your commissioning process? And I'm asking this question because I surveyed the bathrooms, and I saw kind of like a lot of mistakes, and that's kind of when I went to those bathrooms. I mean, it's school fully functioning, which means the project was delivered. And my question is related to the project delivery. With mistakes, I can say kind of, I mean, what I've seen, kind of lights designed to be right on top of the partition. Somebody is inside, somebody is outside within the bathroom, right? I mean, you're using the toilet versus somebody washing their hands on the lavatory side. The lights should be on top of the partition. In many bathrooms, it wasn't. So there wasn't adequate amount of lighting or illumination in the bathroom. So that's a huge mistake. Another mistake I see, like there was like holes in the wall where the penetration of the piping or placing a certain fixture. So, I mean, or kind of like plugs, you know, or receptacles in the wall around that cover. I mean, you can see, if you can put your finger inside, like some holes like that in the walls of the bathrooms. Somebody again told me the type of grout with the tiled floor. The floors look fantastic. I mean, the choice of color, the white and the green, perfect. But again, I mean, I heard complaint about kind of skid marks kind of on those floors, hard to clean. The type of grouting is wrong or might stain with time. So goes back, I'm just giving you examples to the process of commissioning the project. It's commissioned, all what we call is punch list, like you check, everything is, you know, perfectly checked, you know, mistakes are corrected. You deliver the project, we accept delivery. So how this process works? I mean, you can tell me how it works.
So I'll start with the bathrooms are turned over to the school for beneficial use. You know, we have gone on record with the contractor saying that nothing is substantially complete or accepted, right? So there's a whole sequence of operations where ourselves, along with the school and the architect, go through and we write deficiency reports, punch list checklists. So we're still in that process.
Okay, so eventually everything's going to be corrected. I mean,
Yes, we talk about our running list, right, of items that need to be addressed on our weekly meetings, so that way we can schedule that, again, around the district operations.
Okay, I understand. I mean, the schedules were tight. I mean, you know, there were some problems hiring, you know, personnel to, like, contractors, subcontractors to do the work. And you're trying to do, you know, to match, like, reality, right? I mean, reality is we are going to use those facilities. So work took place on weekends, and I understand of that. Now, for phase 2 or phase 1A, if you want to call it, the lessons learned, I mean, this is always a process, right? I mean, we do mistakes, we learn from our mistakes, we don't repeat them. I would say kind of, I mean, that's kind of the reality is there were a lot of mistakes that happened in phase 1. Let's take them as lessons learned so they don't happen again. So you know exactly why X happened, so I'm not going to let it happen again. I'll do my best not to let it repeat itself. Thank you.
Thanks, Bass. No? Christian, no? I do have a couple follow-ups based on the questions that have already occurred. First has to do with the punch list. Kind of, I'm going to meld Brendan's question about how do you define completion date, and I'm going to superimpose or overlay the punch list. Is there a timeline on the punch list items in terms of when they would be estimated to be resolved or worked or both?
Yes, we have a plan, right, item by item as to anticipated dates when they'll be completed. It is something that we status. That is not particularly a line item in that schedule, just because we want to make sure that scheduling tool is a useful tool, right? And then the punch list tool has a list of itemized, and some are reliant on others. So we kind of use that list of remaining work or punch list, you know.
So what I think would be helpful is for the board to get visibility on what that timeline for the punch list actually is. So our expectations, and I think the community's expectations can be managed.
Yep.
So if you could follow up and give us that.
Absolutely.
That'd be quite helpful. The other question, we're talking phase one. It has to do with the phase one items that were completed prior to December. On the sheet or in your presentation, it looks like they were excluded. I'd like to also get visibility into those items that were done prior to, I think your chart here starts, I guess in October,
Okay.
but not for all the work in the various schools, just in some of the schools, such as what I'm looking at here, Willow. I don't see any of the work that was done but what was done. I don't see the stuff that was done, like the bathrooms. I don't see that
So
listed.
no, that schedule specifically is, let's say, post-Labor Day. So that schedule does not include the work that happened over the summer.
Right, so I'd like to actually see that.
Okay.
And get visibility on that, because I think there are items, especially in the middle school, I believe there's been some conversations about the bathrooms in the middle school and what that is, what the scope of the work was, and whether it's outstanding or actually completed. So that would be helpful to know what that schedule was and when it was completed. So
Okay.
please provide that as well. Okay? Thank you, Scott. All right, any other quick closing comments for phase one? None? Well then, continue. Thank you, Scott.
So I think there was just a little bit of a recap here on Phase 1A. So Phase 1A, originally Phase 1, Phase 2, right? So, you know, where did Phase 1A come? It was a breakout of, specifically speaking, the Cornwall and the Hudson Elementary School. So when we were going through and actually working through the logistics of what this would look like for the summer of 2023, this is a highly inclusive summer camp program, right? So it required one of the buildings to maintain a complete summer camp facility, right? So it was operational prohibitive to go ahead and take all of the elementary schools out of service, right? So this was the one that just kind of, you know, was last on the list, if you would, right? It's not that we aren't going to do it, it just, you know, it wasn't going to be part of Phase 1, 2023 scope. So we went ahead because it was a nice independent package unto itself, a good GC package, good mechanical and electrical, plumbing, renovation of all the windows, a little bit of exterior restoration, abatement of the bathrooms, and then upgrading 5 of the interior bathrooms. So we bid this. So, you know, it was pre-SCD approved. We go out to bid. We solicit the contractors. We do pre-bid walkthroughs. Bid date comes in. We qualify. You know, we bring low or next to low contractors in. We kind of go through the job, make sure there was no missing or lapse of scope. It just gives you an idea of the coverage that we had. You know, 6 hazardous abatement contractors bid on the work, 3 general construction contractors, 6 mechanical plumber MPCs. And, you know, kind of give you the spread a little bit. That is their apparent low bidder, right? And their sum total, and then the second. We kind of take a look at the you know, first and the second for a comparison of, you know, spread, scope of drawings, you know, content, right? And then actually what our budget was, right? So you can kind of see this is a standalone package, you know, did not, you know, net out the budgetary value that we were looking for, right? So, you know, we're, you know, obviously that isn't something that we're going to recommend. So there's not something that, you know, the budget we can't absorb at this time, and that's when, you know, rephasing or resequencing. I think we want to refer to that word resequencing of the Phase 2 and then the scope of work. What does that look like for the summer of '24 and summer of '25? And that's something that I think we you know, there was a schedule presented, and that's something that we're going to go into further detail at the next meeting.
And Scott, just to clarify before we get into questions on that, that next meeting you're referring to is the Facilities Committee.
We're on full depth in the Facilities Committee, and then out of that, we will make another presentation at February's board meeting.
Yeah.
Get everybody up to speed,
Right.
path going forward.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that.
So, Luke,
You need to get behind the mic, I'm sorry.
we
Sorry,
can hear
Mrs.
you.
Jazz.
Thank you.
You brought up the fact that we weren't here ready to really talk about the next Phase 2 plan. That's on purpose. By design, the way things have been structured, we're supposed to present to facilities first, our plan, and then facilities comes to the board. So we do have a plan. We just have not presented it to the facilities, which is really what we've been directed to do.
Thanks, I understand that. I think I was asking more, or I think Richard actually asked the question more along the lines of where we ran into roadblocks in the first phase. What was it? A lack of materials? Okay, what are we going to do next time? It's not the plan for the project per se, and we don't have
And those are great questions, but I think what's really important to understand is that Phase 2 is a totally different type of project. So the first project
Phase
was
1A, I'm sorry.
Phase 1, Phase 1A.
Yeah.
Totally different type of project than Phase 2. Phase 2 is your sports fields. So we're attacking it in a totally different manner, and we do have a hard plan there. But to compare the scopes of the two are very different projects.
And I'm using the wrong word because I think I'm talking about the work to be done to finish out Phase 1. So I might have said Phase 2, but I really was thinking about this, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, I think that highlights an important issue that I think everyone is grappling with, and is how we're referring to what originally was known as Phase 1. You know, Phase 1 that has been completed, Phase 1 that is started but still in process, Phase 1 that has yet to be started. I think we need a better way of expressing that than Phase 1 and Phase 1A. And if anyone has any ideas on how we might better align that, maybe just as simply as that which is done, that which is in process, and that is yet to be started might be the way forward, just to clarify and make sure everyone is understanding something that is somewhat intricate and nuanced, as well as a bit complicated, according to the Gantt chart there you see. So, Brendan, you have a comment?
Not on that. I don't have a suggestion for clarifying language, unfortunately. I do want to underscore something, though. Although Phase 2, it is accurate, I think the bulk of Phase 2 is the athletic project. There are many projects that I would describe as being similar to what the Phase 1 projects are. A lot of repairing HVAC. There's exterior work, certainly parking lots, but then interior work, demoing the locker rooms at the middle school, which is going to be a huge undertaking, which I imagine would be, it's going to have a lot of the similar scheduling concerns, certainly as the bathroom, something that would directly impact instruction time. So I think the spirit of Christine's question is valid, learning from Phase 1 to apply to Phase 2, although it might not apply to the athletic field. I think that there are going to be certainly projects similar enough that we can apply those learnings to.
And Brendan, I think that's a great point. I would amend it slightly to say, take those lessons learned on that which remains to get done, even that which is maybe punch listed at this point, but yet to be completed or fixed, as opposed to just waiting for Phase 2, because there's a lot of construction that's still either in process or not yet started that hopefully those lessons learned can be applied to, so we don't have a repeat of what we experienced the fall of this past year. Okay, I'm looking. Let's go to Jim first, and then Christine.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott, for the presentation. So just to obviously this is the budget here, and the bids came in, and we voted as a board last week to officially reject those, which then reopens it. So you're saying that you want to present to the facilities committee in 2-3 weeks, whenever our next meeting is, early February, your strategy to go out and rebid that? Is there a high level that you can talk about today, or is that I'm just going to have to wait? I'm going to have to wait my 3 weeks.
No, we can, no, so we, it's a high level, resequencing, right? Work in 2024 and 2025, right? 2024, attacking the athletic field, attacking the remaining interior work at Lee Road, Cornwall, attacking the middle school locker room, right? And then the high school auditorium, right? That is a big bulk of work. That's got not necessarily summer-dependent activities, which, if, as you know, the summer of 2024 is a shortened summer by all regards, from the holidays to the end of school year to when school starts, right? So none of those are necessarily summer-critical duration-based activities, where now Phase 1A, COH, exterior renovations such as the parking lot, milling, leave that for a longer schedule base, which would be 2025. We always knew this was going to be somewhere in a 3-summer project. Now it's just selecting which scopes would arrive in each one of those summers. And that's what, next week, or the next meeting, the facility is going to go into the depth as to how, why.
So potentially pushing this COH work to 2025.
Yes.
Okay, got it. And then is there any update, last we heard a couple weeks ago, as far as Phase 2 and the athletics complex, SED had picked up the file. I believe there's an architectural review, an engineering review, if I remember correctly, and there was back and forth with the architects and SED, and engineering hadn't really looked at it. Are there any updates there in terms of approval and any estimated timelines out of SED for that?
Any estimate would be really from what we've seen as they go through their projects. We know that the architect has gone back and forth on a couple of addendums or updates, changes, questions, and answers. So that process is still fluid and ongoing. I don't think that we've got an update per se right now as to, hey, are they coming February 1st? Are we going to get approval March 1st? So when we talk about our plan in the facilities meeting, it'll be, okay, here's what we think we're going to do after the clock starts, and when are our red zones, red times.
Got it. Thank you.
Always jumping in. A big part of the reason for not awarding Phase 1A, number one, there was only one window subcontractor that bid to the GC. So when you look at all of the numbers and we look at the budget, the $1.4 million that came in at the GC wasn't even close, and it was because there was just one window subcontractor that bid. And when we went out and we talked to all of the window contractors, all of them were already booked for the summer of 2024. So there was one window prime that threw a big number out under the GC. So we didn't feel comfortable taking that number in, because what we really want to do is go out with a window prime. So what we're going to do is re-strategize. So again, this is something we're going to talk about in facilities, but it's not just, okay, we didn't like the numbers. The GC in particular was totally off base. There was a reason why we didn't award it. One window contractor bid it. It was a stupid number. We're not just going to give away money. So we're going to reinvent the project and get it back out. When you look at the rest of the numbers, we actually were right in line. It was the GC that didn't work, and we didn't feel it was fiscally prudent. When you look at the windows, that we also talked about, can the windows survive one more year? Yes, they can. So let's get this thing back out to bid in the fall of 2024 for a 2025 install for the windows.
So Lou, that's a great clarification. Thank you for that. When did we bid this out?
That was bid out during December.
In December?
Yeah.
So are you saying that 2 months made a difference in terms of people's scheduling in order to do work in the summer?
So when you look at windows, window prime contracts, yeah. And that's really when when you look at the scope of work at COH, that was a big portion of that scope.
So I don't want to turn this into a facilities committee meeting, but I do just want to leave the thought out there and state that, waiting till maybe fall of '24 for that bid work to be done in the summer of '25, if that's where we go, maybe we should do that earlier in terms of bidding out that work. And
It's a good conversation. I think what we try to do is you play the market. If you bid it right now for 2025 work, how much money is that contractor going to put on to carry the work, and how much more confident may he be? So when you look at the window contracts in particular, the other reason the numbers were coming in so high is because of aluminum. So the war in the Ukraine has really caused the price of aluminum to really go through the roof. And when you look at windows, the core of the windows are aluminum based. And so what we wanted to do is get to a place, hopefully, that contractors felt more comfortable bidding that work and knowing that they could get that product on site. Right now, they don't know that they're going to get the product on site. Right now, windows after approval are 6 months. They're a 6-month lead time. So that's what we struggle with. It's a tough conversation. We'll bring that up in facilities. But
Yep, understood. But that's a very important obstacle or impediment to this whole process.
And that's
that
why
need
we
to
just
delve
didn't
into.
feel comfortable awarding that contract. You were getting beat on that number, and it wasn't the right move.
And it wasn't realistic, which is
No.
not reflective of what I'll call the market, which is an important dynamic when it comes to budgeting and actually expending public dollars, right? Was it on market? And no, our estimates appear, at least if I understand you correctly, our estimates seem in line with what's out there prevailing in the marketplace, albeit
Correct.
people are already booked.
Correct.
Yeah, great, thank you. Brendan, do you have a comment or
And just
question?
a point of context for everybody to understand why this is so important. We're talking about replacing every window at COH. So when we say windows, we're not just talking about a handful. But, yeah.
Bass?
Follow up, again, I mean, the fact that I just heard now, I didn't know that, and that's very good piece of information. So rejecting the whole bid process here boiled down to the windows thing. Can we delay retrofitting the windows, replacing the windows, do everything else right now and think about it when the ward become much safer place to live in?
So I'll take the opportunity to just chime in, Bass. I think that's a very great question. I think the Facilities Committee will wrestle with that in terms of sequencing and what is mutually exclusive work and which is dependent work, right? Where you'd want to sequence it in a certain way, and how does the windows fit in that? I think we'll defer that conversation to the Facilities Committee, but it's a great insight. Thank you for that. Richard, do you have a comment? No, you're good? Christine?
I'm not on the Facilities Committee, and I won't be at that meeting. However, I can't underscore enough, we don't have the windows because we bid it too late or people got ahead of us. And it just, for me, underlines that we aren't planning well. We have a lot of red still to be done. And I think that in terms of getting the community's confidence that we're on top of this, perhaps maybe more than once a month there's an update, and we can be more aligned with the timeline. I don't know if aluminum's going to go down, so these windows might still cost the same in a year, so that may or may not impact the budget. But I think that that's surprising to me that that's really the core factor we can't move forward with this, is that there was only one person who could do the work by the time we went to bid.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for the Palumbo Group? Luke, go ahead if you want to provide
It's just a
thought
finish.
to that
We did have
statement?
we had a great plan. The state education department delayed us by 2 months going out to bid. We had no control over that. And you're correct. We should have been out to bid in October. We went out to bid in December. And we're running into the same situation right now in phase 2. We should have been out to bid already. By no fault of ours, the state education department is still reviewing the contract documents. We have no control over that. And
But once you create the plan, do it realistically. Start with 2 months of a delay or whatever it is. So
we put in 6 months for SED review and approval, which by anyone's calculation should have been a lot of time. The fact that it took longer is crazy. But right now, SED has actually increased their time. They're back up to 20, 24 weeks for SED approval, which is almost 6 months. And that's what we planned for when on the first phase of work.
And I'm not suggesting we hold you accountable for SCD timing. What I think is with anything I've ever done, if I'm waiting on someone else and they don't deliver in the time frame I think they're going to, I then have to adjust my plan so that I'm held accountable for what is in my control. So I'm just asking you to consider that. Don't, think you can eat up 3 months of a delay in a project this large. That's not realistic.
Yeah. No.
Christine, I think you make an excellent point. There are a lot of dependencies when it comes to this. The largest impediment that I think the district faces is the state. And if I could, there are lots of actions that people can take to set the battlefield, if you will, by giving people, hey, I don't have approval yet of this, but at some point, you have to follow a very regimented process because of the expense of public dollars. And I don't want to belabor the
John, that
point
doesn't
you
make
make up.
sense.
You make a very.
I'm not saying we belabor anything, but we can't say we're going to finish something when we haven't even gotten approval to start it, right? Am I misunderstanding?
Yeah. So maybe I think so, but we can discuss this offline a little bit. But I understand. I think what Palumbo Group 1 has shared with us this evening, right? And I think I'm encouraged by at least the fact that it's the window, it was one bid, and it's not reflective of the marketplace. And that with other bidders, we would get a more realistic cost, and that would be in line with the budget, we could move forward, as opposed to having to figure out what gets cut. So, no. I'm not saying that you are either. So I'm very encouraged by what I've heard. And I'm just going to leave the rest for the facility committee to work through and then come back to the full board. Richard, I saw Christian earlier when Christine was talking, so I'm going to ask Christian to share his thoughts.
So I do share some of the concerns about communication in general, but I just want to focus on some of the things that I think that clearly do show improvement. At an earlier meeting, I talked about visualization in a Gantt chart, and I'm really happy to see that. And one of the reasons why I've asked a few questions is because I can extract a lot of what I need to know from this, and I appreciate that you made that that change. I think it's helpful. It's helpful to me, and I think it's helpful to some other people to understanding what work is dependent upon what other work. The second thing is, I think I said before, and I think this is echoing Christine's comment, is that it's better to have realistic expectations than high aspirations. And I think the point is just so that we aren't constantly moving goalposts, and that's I think the concern you're hearing from some of us, and that it's a concern because when the capital project was down for the community vote, there were a lot of high promises. And I think sometimes where you're seeing the community disappointment is because, reality sets in, and there's the real world you can't just will things into action, and I appreciate that. And the third is just an observation, and I think that this might not be obvious, but the idea of a capital project was not unique to Cornwall in this period of time. Almost every district throughout the state said, oh, historically low interest rates, lots of federal money, lots of things, and they all kind of got their checklists for decades of projects, and that's what's happening, I think, at the state education department, is they're getting a lot of different plans from all over the state. It's hard for me to think of a district who does not have a capital project going on right now somewhere. of some scale. And I appreciate that's a delay, and perhaps it's one of the realistic things we have to take for what it is, and not just say, well, the state isn't doing it. The state, I think, is a little bit overwhelmed, from my understanding, with conversations with other people. And as I said, I think I appreciate that I feel better with this presentation than I felt with the presentations in the fall. And I think I want to acknowledge that. I think that the communication is better, and I feel a little bit better of what it is. I still have the concerns that I think I share Christine's concerns, but I can see. I think I can see a potential path forward, and I just want to acknowledge that.
Great. Bass, you had no? Richard?
Hey, just quick, I echo what I think most have said. I'm encouraged, but until I see the results, and it's proven to me that we're headed in the right direction with the project, it's just going to have to be proven. And the facilities committee keeps being brought up. That's a very important committee moving forward. And I think to allow for more community engagement, to keep themselves updated on the status of the projects. I know a few years ago when we had facilities committee meetings, they were live streamed. Not saying any decisions have to be made, but maybe we should consider looking at going back to that kind of format as we move forward with these remaining phases.
Yeah, that's fair, Richard. And I'm going to address another initiative as it pertains to the Facilities Committee during the reports
Okay.
part of the agenda. But thank you for
Just
that.
something to consider.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone
Do you mind
else?
if I say a few things?
Bill, go ahead. I know you've
So
been waiting to talk all night.
I don't want to be a guy up here all day long, and I listen to all your concerns, and, we all, between Scott and I, and Lou especially, we work in a lot of districts. You're not the only one that's experiencing problems, and I call them problems because we're in a world of moving targets. What I mean by that is the industry changes every day. For an example, 3 months ago, the review time was 6 to 8 weeks. Today, the review time is 6 months before they even look at your set of drawings. Today, there are 950 projects in front of a project that you submitted in November. So with the low interest rates and everything else, everybody's doing work. Unfortunately, some of the products we use are very specialty products like cabinetry. K through 12 cabinetry, in my opinion, is done by a handful of people within the state that have been doing it for many, many, many years. And what we do to track a lot of these things is up front, we put in the schedule, what's the long procurement material. So we make sure that when we bid out a job, that the first submittals we get are those long lead items. And then on top of that, once it's approved and it goes through its submittal process, we ask that manufacturer to every month update us on where the status is of those products. And a lot of times, they'll just tell us, yep, we're good, we're good, we're good, we're good, up until the month that we're expected to get it. And it happens more often than you think. Mechanical equipment. The district next door here, we did a big mechanical project over the summer of last year. Same thing, they told us everything's good, everything's good, everything's good. And then the month before, they told us, oh, by the way, you're not going to get these, handful of units. And we figured out a way to work around that and get the school open. We put our heads together and we come up with a solution. Same thing with the switchgear. They told us, great, switchgear is coming in. Right now, this means closing the whole building down to change out the switchgear, which is your main distribution panel for electric. A month before it's supposed to show up, we were told it's not coming. So again, we adjusted. So we're constantly adjusting throughout this entire project. It's a moving target. We do our best. I'm here. We brought in another superintendent. Lou is always behind us, and we're constantly going through what can we do better. How do we make these adjustments? We now know that we're not going to get this piece of equipment. What does that affect, right? Because, like you said, the nut, you can't put the nut before the bolt, right? So if we're not getting an air handler unit, how many things does that affect down the line? And it's a constant moving part. So we do. We track things, not just through ourselves, through the manufacturers themselves, through the contractors. These things do happen. I'm not going to lie. We do our best to consolidate them. We're in a world right now where, just like you said, sir, everybody's doing work, and we're trying to keep up with that. And I think we're doing a good job. And I think for Phase 1A and Phase 2, we've brought in additional teams to help go through that. Right now, as a matter of fact, myself and another superintendent who are not involved in phase 2 a couple weeks ago are now going through those drawings, and we're doing what we call constructability review. And we're looking for items and things that we could pick up now, right, before it comes back from SED, that we can make those changes and make the corrections now by just going through them and doing a visual review of the drawings. We do that in the past, but now we're adding more teams and more eyeballs to those types of things to help make sure that doesn't happen in the future. So I hope that helps a little bit explain what we do.
Yeah, thank you for that, Bill. You opened up another thought I had, and I don't know if it's too hard of a question or not, but let me just ask it anyhow. In terms of the oversight of the construction jobs that are occurring, how much of your work is detective, as in you find out about it, like the grout that I heard someone mention, I think it was Bass tonight, after the fact, versus preventative, where if you saw someone trying to put something that wasn't supposed to be installed, you could prevent that from happening and then possibly affect it so it wouldn't cost us in terms of additional time before we have it, to Brendan's term, completed. What's the breakdown between your actions that are detective versus your actions which are preventative to ensure that the project stays on track?
They're one and the same. They don't stop. So one of our roles is to make sure that when the material lands on the job site, we compare that to the submittal. So we don't pick colors, we don't pick route, we don't even really get into the design things. That's what the architect's for, right? The architect sits down with the district. You guys come up with your design. It's approved. We manage the project from there, right? So not only do we do a constructability review on the drawings to make sure that anything that's wrong we may pick up ahead of time, we manage everything that comes into the building. So if you get a product, right, that comes into the building, we have a submittal. The contractor submits the product to the architect through a submittal process, and it's the information of that product. They stamp it approved, it goes into our system. We review that product when it comes in. We match it to the submittal to make sure what they're installing is what was approved to begin with. So that's on the product side, that's what we do. On the quality side, we do the same thing. It's nonstop. Either a project manager or the owner of the company or the superintendent especially, that's his role, is to make sure that the quality that you deserve is what's getting installed.
Okay, so not to belabor the point here, but so with this issue of grout, if those are the checks and balances that occurred throughout that process, how was the grout, the incorrect grout, which I understand was not the polyvinyl that was supposed to be installed, how did that come to be? If we have these checks and balances in place to prevent these types of delays from occurring. Weather changes, time passes, and stuff happens, I get that, right? But in this example, if you have those types of checks and balances in place to prevent it from happening, how did it happen?
So I don't want to say how did it happen? I want to say that but I go stand with, what I've said, the whole system, it's prioritizing the facilities operations of the building, right? Making sure the school gets open, facilities are, turned over timely. In this case, a couple of bathrooms that were not, right? And a good function of that during the summer schedule, slippage and other reasons, right? The spec'd grout took 7 to 10 day cure time, which would have made those bathrooms unusable, both for facilities and contractors. And so it was communicated at the usage of the time that it was non-conforming, but to get opened, it was used.
So how can we, as a board, get better visibility and understanding of those types of issues as they get decided so that we could be prepared as opposed to shocked when we hear that something was used, which seems that it would be used inadvertently when it was intentional, but we were unaware that that was actually happening. And I don't want to answer tonight because I think we've spent a lot of time at this meeting talking about it, but as we move into, say, the facilities committee, which is probably the right place for those conversations to happen, how can we get that feedback loop and enforce it and enact it in a way that there's better communication and understanding? I think that's an important aspect of what I heard from all our members tonight, right? We're starving for information, so how can we improve that? Something to think about, okay? All right. Jim, you got? Well, thank you, Scott, Bill, Lou, for coming tonight. Thank you for taking the line of questions and statements that came your way. And we look forward to a couple of weeks when the Facilities Committee sits down with you all and hopefully can iron out and chart the course forward on all this stuff. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to then move to the report section of tonight's presentation, and we'll start with our student representatives to the board, Kate and Nicholas. Please share your good news.
Good news for COH. The character trait of cooperation has been prevalent throughout the COH community during the month of January. The halls were filled with work that had been done under this theme. This January, the PTO has decided to run Mini Kids Club. Students will have the opportunity to participate in a series of after-school art classes or come to school early and learn how to play tennis or sharpen skills they already have. The PTO is looking forward to the spring when they will be able to offer many more kids' club activities after school. During the month of January, the 3rd and 4th grade students are going to participate in a simulated New York State computer-based assessment. The teachers and students have been preparing to take exams on their Chromebooks. The hope is to get the students used to test taking on a new platform and to test the capability of the network in the building. Many 3rd and 4th grade students have been working diligently preparing for the upcoming Elementary Science Expo being held on January 30th at the middle school from 6 to 7. Snow day is on January 31st at the same time. January brought the start of drama rehearsals at COH. The PTO is excited for the upcoming production of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory Jr. Adults and students involved are excited to once again be working towards putting on a show for a live audience. Willow Avenue. Willow Ave kicked off the new year with kindness. Our students have been learning about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We've learned that Dr. King had a dream where everybody would be kind, helpful, and respectful to one another. In his honor, we are working on a school-wide project. Dr. King said, "Just take the first step. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step." We will take steps to carry on his legacy by achieving 500 acts of kindness. This project will run from January 15th, Dr. King's birthday, through February 14th, Valentine's Day. Mrs. Hogan and Mrs. Bell's 3rd grade class were inspired after reading an article in Scholastic magazine about a group of students who raised money to send a veteran from the Hudson Valley on an honor flight. The next honor flight is scheduled in April. With the support of our PTO, they are taking over the sale of popcorn during lunch on January 26th. They will be advertising the event, bagging the popcorn, selling it, and counting up the proceeds. In February, they will sponsor Hearts for Heroes, and March will do another Popcorn with Purpose. Our 4th graders traveled to Urban Air for a day filled with STEAM fun and activities. On Friday, January 28th, we are welcoming local author Nikki Halwani. She will be visiting the students during the afternoon to read her book titled Peyton's Magical Hearing Aid. She said, quote, "This book was created to help promote inclusivity among children of all backgrounds and be used as a positive support for parents as well as educators to share when a child or student is feeling upset about wearing a hearing aid or being different. Have a wonderful week and stay warm."
All right, and this is Cornwall Elementary School good news. The month of January has been full of fun lessons and lots of snow. Our students had a chance to enjoy the winter weather while learning all about this month's character trait of cooperation. We would like to congratulate our 4th grade band, chorus, and orchestra students on their successful winter concert. Mrs. Suby, Mrs. Johnson, and Mr. Wood put together a wonderful program. Our students filled the CCHS auditorium with beautiful music. Mrs. Gleason's 3rd graders learned about what animals need to survive. They created 2 different habitats for their roly-polies and observed which habitat the roly-polies liked best. The students took notes and later discussed their findings. Science in action. Before winter break, student athletes from CCHS visited some of our classes to conduct read-alouds. They read our students holiday-themed stories to help them get in the festive spirit and opened the floor to students to ask questions. They asked the high schoolers all about their experience with sports. It was a wonderful treat for our students. We hope to see them again soon. This past week, the Cornwall Elementary School Drama Club's production of Finding Nemo Jr. debuted. Our students and amazing volunteers put so much effort into creating a fantastic show. Between the dancing, the singing, the colorful set design, this was a musical you didn't want to miss. Congratulations to all involved. We cannot wait to see your next production. In honor of our first significant snowfall, Mr. Moulton and Mr. McGuire organized 2 days of sledding and PE class. Students were asked to bring all their snow gear to school: hat, gloves, coats, boots, and snow pants. And our PE teachers provided the sleds. The students got to listen to music while they went up and down the hill near the softball field. What a blast. We are now looking forward to the Elementary Science Expo, which will be held at CCMS on January 31st, and our author visit in February from author and illustrator John Parra. Cornwall Middle School good news. The CCMS Music Department held their 7th and 8th grade winter concert at CCHS. The audience was treated to a beautiful performance by all of our bands, orchestra, and choruses. Mother Nature had another plan for our 5th and 6th grade concert, which is rescheduled to tomorrow night. Many thanks to the CCMS Music Department for all of the work planning these events. We appreciate all you do to allow our students to make music. Students in Mrs. Lark's Success class opened the Cup of Success Cafe in December. Our students interviewed for their jobs, created the log, set up the store, and welcomed customers. In the future, students will be learning how to make a variety of baked goods and products to sell to students and staff. CCMS students in grades 5 through 8 took part in a computer-based testing simulation to prepare for the New York State assessments this spring. Students and teachers practiced Assess the Nextra system and submitted a short 10-question trial, while our administration and IT staff monitored the back end to ensure everything was prepared for the spring. All right, and finally, Cornwall High School January good news. After a restful winter break, CCHS students returned to their studies and extracurriculars. Indoor track braved the cold weather and bundled up for practice as boys and girls basketball continued their season collecting wins. Several safe driving forums have taken place, educating juniors on safety on the roads for upcoming parking applications. Additionally, CCHS students helped Mr. Hines put together and coordinate the CES drama show Finding Nemo, which took place on January 12th through 14th. CES Drama Club members did an amazing job. Students are kicking into high gear as midterm week is vastly approaching, hurriedly preparing for exams as the frigid weather delayed review time. The CCHS Drama Club has also been rehearsing and preparing for their spring musical Something Rotten in April. Finally, first semester is wrapping up as students and staff look forward to the second half of the year and all that it has to bring.
Kate and Nicholas, thank you so much for sharing that good news. You know, earlier presentation went probably a little longer than most people were anticipating. It was great dialogue, don't get me wrong, but I'm sure you may have better things to do than spend the rest of the night listening to the board. So I just want to give you the option. You're welcome to stay, but if you have things that you think are more important, please feel free to adjourn and get back to your studies.
Like midterms. So.
All right, so then what I'd like to do is then move on to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. I will take it as per, correction, deflection on that. Our next report, sorry, Terry. I heard you coughing in the back, is the superintendent's report. So, Terry, please.
Just keep it short and sweet. So everyone loves a snow day, but just remember, pay me now or pay me later. There's 5 days built in to the calendar, so as you're cheering on Ben Knoll and those percentages, just know that there's 5 days built into the calendar. Day 6 is May 24th, will come off as a holiday and become a school day, and then we pivot to remote instruction. So keep the cheers up, but try to keep them within a manageable, because it will impact your holiday schedules coming up shortly.
How many have we used so far?
We've already used 3.
3.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Takes us then to, thank you, Terry. Takes us then to the President's report, my report. I have 3 things to discuss. First, Facilities Committee. As everyone's aware, Lewis and Carl are members of that committee, and they are going to be out of commission for a while. What I'd like to do is, because we have lots of work to do as a board, and the Facilities Committee is going to be kind of the point of the spear on a lot of that activity, is what I'd like to do is temporarily post 2 additional board members that will roll off that committee when Lewis and Carl come back. And I intend to participate in the Facilities Committees, but just in the role of ex officio. I've had 2 board members express interest in joining that on a temporary basis, that committee. They are Christian and Richard, and I want to throw it open to anyone else who might have a desire and the time to participate in that, and see if we can just move forward. Anyone else want to, we're kind of limited to the number of committee members being 4. And so we're able to take another one if it's so desired. So right now I have Christian and Richard, if anyone else would like to step forward. Well, Jim is also, and Jim will serve as the acting chairman until Lewis gets back. Brendan?
I'd like to throw my hat in, yeah.
Okay, so anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a need, I mean, I would be ready.
Okay, so,
John, I'm willing to defer because my interest was mostly knowing how shorthanded we were going to be and how important it was more than, and I think that if, I would defer to both Bass and Brendan on this if they weren't interested.
Thank you, Christian. Richard, are you still interested in that?
Good to go.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's do this officially, I guess, and take a. Can I have a motion to add Brendan, Bass, and Richard to the Facilities Committee on a temporary basis until Lewis and Carl are able to rejoin that August assembly? Get a motion? Christian, thank you. A second? Christine, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, fantastic.
John,
Motion
if I
approved.
could just mention something.
Harvey.
Your role, just keep in mind, if, I don't know the capacity of your role, but if it's part of the committee, there'll be a quorum. So it will be a full meeting then.
Right, so I would be ex officio,
Okay.
and much like I've seen others participate, I'd be in the cheap seats.
Okay.
I would not vote, I'm not a voting member of that. If anything, maybe steer it if necessary with commentary, but really observing would be my desired role in participating in those committees. But thank you, Harvey, for clarifying that. Okay, so that's great. The second thing I want to talk about is the board assessment. As we mentioned earlier, it's a goal for the board this year to do a self-assessment. We have the tool now. I'm going to be rolling out the link to everyone with perhaps Linda's help, such that you can get in there and provide some initial benchmarking commentary along NYSBA's board evaluation schema. And I'd like to get that done by the next meeting so that by the end of let's say February, we can meet again as a board and discuss the results of that, as well as kind of plot out what we're going to be focused on for the remainder of the year. I think that schedule should align with everybody. So we'll take a couple weeks to work through that assessment. Shouldn't take but probably an hour, but I know everyone's busy working a lot of different things, so give us about 3 weeks to get that complete. Okay? And the last, Christian, question? Committee reports will be done at our working session meeting, which is the first meeting of the month. So I don't know the February date, but we'll do that in February. Please, go ahead. Very good. So what we'll do is we will send out an email discussing the various legislative priorities that our local trade union, the Orange County School Board Association, has put out, and ask people provide input, much like Bass did when he went up to the NISBA conference in October. So we'll put that out, and as Christian said, that date's on February 7th, so let's get those comments out and back to Christian by the end of the month. I think that should be doable. I'm looking for some north-south. Yeah, I think everyone can accommodate that. Thank you, Christian, for bringing that up. And the last thing I want to quickly talk about is the survey. We are at the 99.9% solution. We've worked it out such that the 4 constituent groups to be surveyed through the tripod data triangle will be instructional staff, non-instructional staff, students, and families. We're going to look to start that process over the next week or two. We have to get a contract between Tripod and Orange Ulster BOCES. They have yet to send that contract to Orange Ulster BOCES. I understand that's going to be happening within the next couple days. And as we get confirmation of that from Harvey, we'll be able to start rolling up our sleeves and making progress in terms of getting that started. So I think we're still on track to get this done with responses by the end of March, and to be able to discuss those responses probably at the April board sessions. Okay? Very good. And, Brendan.
I just want to understand the timeline. So will we have to approve that contract at next meeting before it gets sent out?
So the contract, I think it's going to be a tri-party. Harvey, I'm looking at you right now. I think it'll be a tri-party between us and Orange Ulster BOCES and Tripod, and Orange Ulster BOCES and Tripod, since they're the co-serve.
It is under a COSA. We would still, as a board, need to approve that
Right.
service.
But it's going to be a 3-part. So we need to get Orange.
We don't need
Ulster-
BOCES with regards to this. The board will approve utilizing this contractor in a BOCES COSA. So all 3 parties get mentioned, but the resolution would be along those lines. And the resolution would be, to approve it or not. It would also, a copy of the contract would be needed to be attached to the resolution like we do with all
Right.
contracts. Yeah.
And that's what we're waiting on. And I think BOCES, as I understand it, BOCES opines on that contract as well.
Yes.
And
They
s-
make
and so
sure-
it's going to take some,
Yep.
bottom line, next time. Okay. With that completes my remarks. Let's move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. Is there anyone who has any items that they would like to pull?
I'd like to pull number 9, please.
Number 9. Any others? number 7. Okay, anyone else? None? Okay, so then what I'd like to do is get a motion on the consent agenda. Those items 1 through 6 and number 8. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right, motion passed. Okay, so item number 7, we'll do it in numeric order. Appointment of IHO officer. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right. Discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to
Beth.
have, yeah, thanks, John. Some more kind of information to me personally and to the community at large here, how this came about. I mean, based on recommendation from the superintendent to hire this gentleman.
So, go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, it's,
Go ahead.
it's a requirement, so anytime a family puts forward a due process complaint, we're responsible within a certain time frame of appointing an independent hearing officer.
And, just confirm my understanding, this is from a list, and we basically pick the next person. There is a common list, and we pick the next person available on that list.
Correct.
Of impartial hearing officers that are available.
That's correct.
Qualification-wise, I mean, how that comes up?
The state determines the requirements to be an independent hearing officer, and they would only provide us with the list of those that can meet those requirements.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Bass. Thank you, Terry and Christian. We have motion, it's been seconded, discussed. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passed. Moving on to number 9. A readoption of the 23-24 Board of Education meeting calendar. Motion, please.
So moved.
Okay. Discussion, Jim.
Yeah, so I just wanted to confirm we're the only change on this. Terry is moving what is currently scheduled as the Monday, May 6th meeting to Tuesday, May 7th?
Yes, that is the only change.
Okay, and the reason, just for everybody's knowledge, for that change is that puts it within 2 weeks of the budget vote, and there's a New York statute that lays out the whole budget process, and you need to have the budget hearing within 2 weeks, and we just said rather than convene a separate meeting just for that, move the existing meeting back 1 day, so it fits into that timeline. So just want to make sure that was the only change in there.
That is 100% correct.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right, motion passed. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to recognition of visitors. This is the second round. Is there anyone wishing to come forward with any comments? All right, hearing none, we will move on to closing comments by the board members, and I'm going to look at Kate, ladies first. We'll start with you, please.
I just want to say thank you for another great meeting and Happy New Year.
And similar to Kate, Happy New Year, everyone, and thank you for a good meeting.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Kate. Okay, Richard.
I'm up. So thanks to everyone for coming out. Pretty good turnout tonight. Thank you to the CCHS Jazz Band. That was a great performance they put on. A great start to a great meeting. And I just want to acknowledge all our administrators, teachers, staff, students, families for, we're halfway through the year just about. And it's because of all of our stakeholders that we're such a great district. And I just appreciate everyone's involvement in making that possible. And with that, I'm going to keep it short, so have a good night.
Thank you, Richard. Beth?
I don't have a lot of, or any comment to make. I just, I'm happy that we spent kind of half of the year kind of successfully. I just wish for everybody a successful second half of the year.
Thank you, Pass. Christian?
Just want to note that the governor's preliminary budget came out last week. And so we have the preliminary numbers for Cornwall, and I guess the key word is preliminary. And I just want to encourage everyone who's watching at home that if you could advocate on behalf of our district, I'm sure that we would all, including everyone at home, appreciate it. Just secondly, an observation. So we got, one of the things that we got between the last meeting is something about questions regarding special education. And I just want to point out one that was disappointing to me, which is that we don't have an active SEPTO, a special education PTO. And I think it's a really important thing to have because it's a support for parents and it's a support for the students as well. And I'm probably not the person to do this in my role, but I would encourage people to, if this is important to you, there is strength in having peers, support, knowledge, etc. And I would encourage both our PTO as well as members of the community who have knowledge and experience to help to create one for future students and future parents.
Thank you, Christian. Hey, Brendan?
Thanks, John. Just want to start by acknowledging that we are not a 9 of 9 group, and we probably won't be for a period of time. I want to just wish Carl and Lewis a speedy recovery. They're certainly on my minds. I'm sure they're on all of our minds, and will be in the weeks to come, and we will keep your seats warm. Thank you to the Palumbo group. I know it was an illuminating presentation. I think that, Christian, I think you said at one point you felt a little better coming out of this one than the previous one. I think just the more information, the better. So, and I certainly appreciate them standing in, answering all the questions, no matter what, how fast or furious they came in. Nick and Kate, thank you as always. It's always a joy to get those updates from the trenches. We appreciate your time as always, and if I were in your shoes, I would have gotten out of here the second I was given the opportunity, so I admire you for that. The jazz band was incredible. Certainly, there's something about when they started playing, a trumpet playing the national anthem is one of just like a singular thing of beauty. It reminded me of the Ken Burns baseball documentaries. They all opened with that. Which is a cinematic favorite of mine. It was just really great to see, again, the incredible talent that's in this district. And speaking of that, I want to acknowledge another great achievement of the arts in this district, and that was the elementary school, the CES drama show last Saturday, 9 days ago now. It was certainly no one is surprised I'm involved in it, but it's something that involves so many more people beyond me. It is always an extraordinary achievement. To quickly shout out some names, John Hines, who walked in right before I uttered this, so that was good timing. Denise Carter, Carolyn Kulik, Jess Henry, Kirsten Hauserman, Sue King, Annette McTeague, Peter and D. Ireland, certainly not least Bridget Carty, who is my wife. And that is just the tip of the iceberg for the amount of people that it takes to put on a show like this. The reason I mention this is just a clarion call to continue to support the arts. We had 700 people in attendance for the Saturday night performance, which is an enormous crowd. If you can imagine the high school, that's pretty much everyone filling up the main section. The only parts that were not filled were not open with the rear sections way in the back. It's probably the biggest crowd that's been in there since high school graduation. And the previous two performances drew something like 500 each. So that's almost 2,000 people coming to an elementary school production in the middle of winter, very cold weekend, 3 shows, 2 nights. I think that shows the extraordinary support, organic support that this community has for the arts. And it's not just in the people in the stands, it's in the volunteers that are running around furiously backstage, the parents who sign their kids up. We see it over and over again. We saw it last year at the high school. We see it each year, both high school performances. I recall after the spring show, Anything Goes, there was a local viral post from a Cornwall graduate who had seen the show, gave a review of how amazing it was, and then posted a picture of a former Cornwall Drama Club member, the actor Armand Asante, who apparently, I didn't know this until it was pointed out, was a Cornwall graduate back in, I think, the late 60s. And the image was from the yearbook of a 17-year-old Armand Asante reviewing, his probably soliloquy for Hamlet or something. And it was all very appropriate. But the story came with a warning that although the drama club was flourishing back in those days when Armand Asante was there and this person who was posting on social media, the program did not last. Apparently there was a very motivated teacher that was spearheading the program at the time, and when that teacher retired, the program went with him. And I say this as a warning that although it seems like because there's such great energy around these programs, that does not mean that they will last. They only last because every generation decides to start it up anew. I know that we have great support in this district. I think that, again, it's evidenced by just the amount of people that show up and the amount of people that volunteer. But I think it's incumbent upon all of us, not just board members, administration, parents, everyone, to always seek ways to continue to support. Go to these shows, buy a ticket. That money goes right back into those kids. Share something, tell people about the shows. If you're someone who is inclined to donate to a sports fundraiser, donate to an arts fundraiser. I think we have internalized all of the values of sports as a vehicle to teach kids important life lessons. We don't expect that every kid on the football team is going to grow up to be an NFL player. In fact, we don't expect any of them. But for some reason, I think there's a sense that arts is kind of a pipe dream. It's only a way, it's a toy that kids can play with until they grow up. And that's not the case at all. We look at sports as a valuable vehicle to teach kids lessons about hard work and determination and telling yourself you can do something that you might not think you can do, and then eventually you do it. Not everybody can play football. For a lot of those kids, theater is their sport. And I hope that as a community, we always find ways to support the arts as much as we support everything else. With that, I wish everybody a good night.
Christine?
Brendan, thank you for that great commentary. My daughter does have a t-shirt that says, "Theater is my sport." She's outgrown it, but it's still in the closet. And I will just say that Finding Nemo was an incredible production. I am blown away that these are fourth graders. If you're a parent of only a fourth grader, you think, oh, they're so big. But once they pass that, you look back and think, they're still really young. That is a huge accomplishment to do what they did. And not to mention that there's K through 4 in that show, in that production. So it was beautiful. The kids, you could tell, had a great time. And yeah, kudos to everybody. And I'm just doubling down on what you said, but it was incredible. And I encourage folks, I think the spring production, Nick is in that. It's funny. So, I think and there's a lot of dancing, and it's a funny show. So you don't have to take it too seriously. Just come out and have a good time, right? Bass, thank you for bringing up the idea of bringing the jazz band. I wasn't sold on it originally, just in the sense of the meetings are long, but that was really inspirational. So thank you for thinking outside the box and encouraging us to do something different, because I really enjoyed that. And yeah, I am grateful for the Palumbo Group coming and answering our questions. I think it is helpful for the community to see, their involvement, their commitment, and that, we're holding all of us accountable for ensuring that it's moving forward. So I appreciate them entertaining our questions and giving us their honest feedback. So thank you.
Jim?
Thank you, John. So I won't belabor the points everybody else made. I echo most of the sentiments already made here. Brendan, I thank you for your thoughts on the drama program. Really good. And Christine, I agree with you. When I go to these elementary level drama productions, you're really blown away. We've got, my kindergartner will be doing Willy Wonka Jr. coming up here at COH. So I think with all the snow days, he's trying out for Mike TV because that's all he wants to do is watch TV. So, yeah, I will just say one thing that hasn't been said yet is one of the things we approved in the consent agenda tonight is the budget calendar. The board has really a narrowly defined role by statute. There's only, a handful of responsibilities that we undertake, and one of, if not the most important, is presenting a budget for the public to vote on for each operating school year. And there's a lot of work that begins on that, and I know it's already begun, in each building, bubbling up through the building administrators, bubbling up to central administration. And I know that's an ongoing process, and they've done a lot. But the board work begins in public, and the two February meetings, February 5th and February 26th, and then March 18th and April 8th, are the four big meetings that we're going to discuss that. So for those of you watching on the live stream now or who go watch this later, if you want your voices heard in the budget process, I encourage you to come to those meetings and make public comments and make your voices heard to make sure that we have all the information that we need as a board to put forth the best budget for our voters to approve. Along those same lines, obviously the presentation tonight, said we've got a lot of work to do as a facilities committee, which will then bubble back up to the board if anybody in the public is interested in that. Our next meeting is February 12th at 6 p.m. at the district office. Public is welcome to attend. So if anybody would like to attend that next facilities committee meeting, mark that on your calendar.
We may talk about relocating that, just based on some of the commentary I heard from Richard and from the community as well. So we may have outgrown that, but we'll talk more about it as we get closer. But thank you for that, Jim. Wow, a lot of great commentary tonight. I think we've done a great deal of advancing the ball this evening. Speaking of balls, both Christine and Brendan talking about, the arts being a sport. It's so true. Life, be in it. And with Nike's saying of just do it, it's so true. And what I want to just talk about is how people master subjects and how people succeed. And Cornwall has always succeeded in my mind's eye. I didn't know about Armand DeSante's history here. I knew he lived here, but I didn't know he did a Hamlet soliloquy. I made that up. That's okay. Too much information there. But when everyone understands Pee Wee football and T-ball, and next thing you know, you have high school teams that are dominating the section and dominating the state because they started young and perfected their craft and developed the skill, the confidence, and the motivation, the inspiration. And whatever that walk of life is for our kids, whether it be arts or athletics, music, listening to an all-state performer tonight, right, Garcia, just on the trumpet, just fantastic. I think it's incumbent on us to reflect on that and find ways that we can create the environment for these young people to become the best versions of themselves they can be before they walk out these doors and enter that cruel, mean world outside the district. So I just want to thank everyone who's part of that development process for our kids. And I want to thank the board for their very insightful discussion, comments, and questions of Palumbo Group tonight. Thank you for sharing that. And Kate and Nicholas, thank you. Nicholas, thank you for rejoining us. Kate did a great job in your absence while you were doing your tryout. I look forward to your performance. And I hope you got the part that you were auditioning for. Fantastic. Well, good news. All right, with that, I just want to thank everyone for their participation tonight and ask for a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Good night, everyone.